This video is all about what's called the four-body model. Essentially, it's a popular model in the metaphysical circles to explain kind of how humans work. And I think it's both intellectually interesting, but also very practical, because understanding the four bodies and how they relate to each other can often make a difference and give us a great tool to improve our day-to-day lives. My name is Brent Phillips. I am the founder and creator of the Awakening Dynamic System of Energy Healing and Higher Consciousness. And I'm here with this standalone YouTube video because I get a lot of questions from my clients and students about this. And I wanted to make a video just to kind of lay it out there for you. This is how it works. And so, of course, I didn't invent this model, but I've seen this referenced by a lot of my teachers, including my most important teachers, Terry and Carl. They both subscribe to the four-body model, and it goes something like this, that we human beings have four different bodies that are sort of dimensionally layered on top of each other. Before I go further, I'll just say, if you don't want to believe any of this, if you're like super religious or just want to throw hate, you know what? There's lots of other videos for you, right? I'm not here to convince you of anything. I would encourage everyone, be an open-minded skeptic. Don't believe anything just because you heard it on YouTube. But also open your mind that there may be more to this world and the universe around us than we're able to see and measure with our eyes and hands. That's all. And I am an engineer turned healer. I used to be a lifelong, what I thought was skeptic and rational person. Then I had the experience of genuine miracles, not just once, but over and over. I'm just like, hey, there's something to this, right? So here I am to share with you my experience, having done this work as a professional energy worker for over 20 years full time. So here we go. What are the four bodies? It's pretty simple. We got a physical body. Duh, right? There it is. Yeah, punch it hurts, right? You don't eat, it gets hungry. That's an easy one, right? We also have a mental body. And that's where the mind lives. Your ideas, your personality, your memories, things like that. We also have an emotional body, which is the part of us that holds and reacts with emotions. And lastly, we have a spiritual body, which is very much akin to what you might call the animating spirit or soul or higher self. Again, use whatever terminology, framework, theology works for you. I kind of see them as being the same thing. I don't make a lot of distinctions there. And so why is this important? Well, the first and most important thing to know about the four bodies is that they only stay connected when we're here living on Earth. And at the moment of death, it's pretty simple. The physical and the emotional body stay here on Earth. They rot, turn to dust, etc. The spiritual and mental bodies separate and continue on their journey in the higher dimensions. What's sometimes called the ethereal plane or the fourth plane. I don't want to get too much into that here. If you guys are curious to learn more about any of this terminology, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I aim to answer every comment on every video personally as soon as I can. And so when we're born, a similar thing happens. We start in the higher dimensions with a spiritual and mental body, and then we combine them. We sort of coalesce into a physical, emotional body, and that's what we live in when we're here on Earth. And it's very interesting that those that know how to cross over to the other side, what we call intuitives or mediums or psychics or channels or things like that, they will tell you that before we're born and after we die, we are still there in some sense. How does that work, right? Well, it's pretty simple. Again, the physical and emotional bodies are limited to our single lifetime on Earth. The spiritual and mental bodies persist across many generations' lifetimes. And so if you get the right training, I teach this in some of my Awakening Dynamics intensives, but certainly there's lots of teachers out there that can teach you how to channel or access your intuition, go to your ancestors. One of the exercises I do is I have my students contact one of their ancestors and have a little chat about an important event or something happening in their life. And I've done this many, many times. I've run at least 1,000, 2,000 people through this exercise. And here's the thing that people say. They will usually go to someone they knew when they were young, often a grandparent or an uncle or an older relative is most common. And they usually say something like this. Hey, Brent, I went to connect to my grandpa Bob, and I could tell it was him. I remember some of the languaging, some of the phrases, kind of his energy, his attitude was very familiar, but he seemed so much nicer, so much more mellow. So I hear that a lot. Now, it's not true with everybody, but it's very common that if you only knew someone when they were older towards the end of their life, they still had their physical, emotional bodies connected, and most of us have a lot of pain by that point. A lot of physical pain from aging and injuries, a lot of emotional pain from all the things we've been through in life. Relationships broken up, dreams dashed, people, animals, places we've loved that we've lost. So that's understandable. And what tends to happen is after we die, much of that pain that resides in the physical and emotional body stays here on earth. My first teacher, Terry, used to say that for all of us, death is our final healing. It is necessary for us to die so we can separate from that which is limiting us and holding us back. And so when you go chat with your grandpa or your uncle or whoever on the other side, it's very common they will seem a little nicer, a little more mellow, a little more patient. Why? They're not in pain, because the large majority of the pain resides in the physical and emotional bodies. Interesting, huh? And just a little tip for those of you that want to go chat with your ancestors. One, make sure you have a good teacher. Playing with spirits is not something I would recommend for those that are untrained and unaware. It could potentially be dangerous. I don't think it'll kill you, but it could scare the heck out of you, and it could traumatize you. It could certainly make you physically sick too. So just be careful, know what you're doing. You can learn from me or anybody you feel comfortable with. Just make sure you have a guide. No different than people will say with psychedelic drugs. You don't want to go and take really powerful psychedelic drugs if you don't know what you're doing. You need a guide. Makes it much safer, much more healing. And if you're going to do that, I would encourage you start with genetic ancestors for one simple reason. Your genetic ancestors will always speak to you. Now, if you want to go channel Elvis or Jesus or Buddha or Martin Luther King or Einstein or something, hey, don't let me stop you. Just be aware that spirit may or may not have interest in chatting with you, especially if it was someone famous. There's all sorts of people who are lining up to chat with them all the time, right? So when you're first starting, stick to your genetic ancestors. That'll be easy. So now I want to take a moment to give you some advice on how this can actually help you in your day-to-day life. It is an interesting metaphysical curiosity, but it may not be immediately obvious how this is practical. So I want to cover that. But before we do, I just want to take a moment. I am a YouTuber. I'd really like you to watch my videos. I want YouTube to think they're cool if you think they're cool. So hit like, hit subscribe. If you want to learn more about me, some of my trainings, check below in the description. We've got some cool links, some awesome events coming up. Sweet. So how does this matter to your life? Well, it's pretty straightforward. That each of the bodies has a certain level of intelligence associated with it. We have physical intelligence, emotional intelligence, mental intelligence, and spiritual intelligence. And unfortunately, in our current Earth reality, when we talk about intelligence, what we're almost always referencing is narrowly mental intelligence. And so here's why that's maybe not such a great idea. First of all, if you really want to excel in life, if you want to make more money, have more friends, make a bigger impact in the world, leave a legacy, whatever it is, own a big home, be on TV, have 1 million TikTok subscribers, whatever your thing is, you need to understand that we have to develop all 4 bodies to work together because we are, in a sense, a 4-part being. So here's a simple metaphor. Imagine a racehorse. Now, I'm not an expert on racehorses, but I've seen some on TV, right? I've ridden horses a few times. Last I checked, horses have 4 legs, right? So let me ask you this. Could you develop a championship racehorse with 1 really strong leg, but 3 that are weak? Or maybe you have 2 strong legs and 2 that are weak. No, that's ridiculous. If you want to develop a champion racehorse, a horse that runs really fast, you want all the legs to be strong, and perhaps even more importantly, they need to be in some kind of balance. If you have 1 or 2 or 3 legs that are much stronger than the others, the horse is more likely to get injured. It may just run in a circle, not the big circle around the track to win a prize, but just run in a small circle. So I know it's a little bit of a silly metaphor, but I think there's a lot of power there. In order to achieve optimum performance, we need to strengthen all 4 legs. And they need to be somewhat coherent in how they work together. Because imagine a racehorse that can't coordinate itself. It's going to fall and get hurt. It's certainly not going to win a race, right? What my late mentor Carl said is this. He said, I meet people almost every day of my life that have slammed down the accelerator on their mental body, trying to do everything through the mind, more learning, more knowledge, more degrees, more friends, more money. This is all part of the mental body. And we wonder why we struggle and suffer. The second part of that is he would say most of us have our foot firmly planted on the brake on the other three. So we're trying so hard to develop the mental body, and yet we're ignoring, even neglecting the other three. And so it's very interesting. He used to say that roughly in terms of power and ability to create impact in the world, the most important is the spiritual body. That is the eternal part of us, the soul, the divine spark, where our wisdom lies, and it kind of runs the whole show in a sense. So if you're just going to pick one to focus on, the spiritual body is a great choice. The study of awakening, Advaita Vedanta, or non-duality, is a wonderful way for many of us to start to develop that spiritual body, which many of us neglect. Secondly, second to the spiritual body would be the emotional body. Oddly, that emotional intelligence is far more impactful and valuable on Earth than mental intelligence. So the ability to have a high emotional IQ is really, really important. And for a lot of us, we'll do better in life trading 5 or 10 points of mental IQ for 1 or 2 or 3 points of emotional IQ. So developing your ability to handle your emotions, meditation, energy healing, breath work, things like this. Anger management would be a crude but sometimes effective method. So make sure you develop your emotional intelligence too. At the end of the day, it's probably going to do a lot more for you than the mental part. I remember one of the things my teacher Terry taught, she would say, expect when you teach a class that people will forget at least 95% of what you tell them, but they will always remember exactly how you made them feel. That's what we're talking about, right? Next down on the list is physical intelligence. That if you're serious about making money in this world, it's often far more important to develop your physical intelligence, specifically the ability to feel your body. It's not as important to have giant muscles or run super fast. That's more of a downstream effect. But the ability to really feel your body, to know what's going on, to have a positive relationship with it is incredibly important. And what he would say, Carl would say, okay, go talk to 100 college professors and find out how much money they make. Because college professors got a huge brain. They're really smart. They got PhDs. They did really well in school, right? Most of them don't make very much money. Then go talk to 100 professional athletes. And we all know the kind of money that professional athletes can make in our world. Wow, right? Now, the low man on the totem pole is the mental intelligence. Now, it's worth developing. It shouldn't be ignored. But it's the low man on that totem pole. It's the least impactful, the least important. And it's also the one that we put almost all of our effort into. And so just don't make the big mistakes that I did. When I was growing up, I really thought that if I studied hard, went to a good college, got good grades, that I'd be rewarded with a great job and make a lot of money and girls would like me and I'd live a long time. Absolute nonsense. It matters a little bit. It's worth developing. And to be fair, there's a lot of New Agers that neglect their mental body and it is holding them back. They try to do everything through feeling or intuition. That's great, but sometimes you got to sit down and figure it out, right? There are times and places in life where we need that mental intelligence. And I think you'll find at the end of the day, if you're able to assess and identify where your weaknesses are and strengthen them, then you're like that racehorse that strengthens its weak legs. You're just going to get faster and faster and faster. And I think you're going to like what happens in your life. So that's all I got to say about this for today. If you have any comments or questions, put them below. I would love to hear from you. If you want to learn more about me or some of my work, check out the links in the description. So until next time, I hope you found this some combination of informative, informational, transformational, and kind of fun. And so until next time, please take care and namaste.